Yes, we will be recording this training just so that we can share it around afterwards and have it be sort of an evergreen resource for folks. That way it can hopefully stay useful beyond just this 1 hour. We also, could one of my fellow colleagues drop in the chat our follow along document link? We've prepared a little document that condenses the information that we'll be covering in this training. That way you'll be able to reference it as you're also hearing the presentation, and hopefully we'll find that really useful moving forward. And it should contain all the hyperlinks and information that you'll need in order to get set up with advocacy on social media. I might wait just 1 or 2 more minutes. I can't see how many folks joined, but it looks like a lot. Very exciting. Okay, I'm gonna get us started. Those people who are still joining will be able to catch up. And like I said, we're recording, so we'll circulate everything following this meeting. So stay tuned for that. Like I said, I'm so grateful to you all for joining us this evening to discuss social media and advocacy. As you all know, it's a really exciting time for us in advocacy at the association, both nationally and statewide. We have our DC Advocacy Forum coming up in just a little over 2 weeks. So I am excited to see many of you there in DC. And of course, our State Advocacy Day is coming up in May. And many of us are also doing district level meetings with our legislators. So it's a very busy time. And I know that we're all well-informed and tuned in advocates who are already doing amazing work. And that just means that social media and getting on the same page there, this is a great opportunity to do that. I think social media advocacy is a really great complement and supplement to the ongoing advocacy that you're all doing. And this training will really be sort of a refresher for those folks. I know a lot of you are already on Twitter and involved in advocacy. Just want to get all on the same page there again. And for those who have not yet, gotten into the realm of social media advocacy, I hope this training will be especially useful for you all, and that you'll feel comfortable in either getting set up today or talking with us at a later date if you have any lingering questions. So hi, I'm Zoe Bowles. I'm based out of the San Diego and Imperial chapter, and I'll be one of the presenters today. We also have my colleague Nina Musavi. She's in the California Southlands chapter based in LA. And my colleagues Terry Mock and Veronica Misch will also be supporting with presenting today, and they are based in Northern California. So I'm sure these are very familiar names for everybody joining. What we're going to talk about today is why social media advocacy matters. Why is it that staff keeps hounding everybody about posting tweets after meetings? We're going to talk about what social media platforms are the most effective, and then how to use those platforms effectively. And then at the end of our discussion, our colleague Veronica is going to lead us through a live Twitter demonstration where she tweets out one of our sample tweets and then shows how to use Twitter and some of the other functions about Twitter that we'll be discussing today. We'll also have a little bit of a Q&A towards the end so that if anybody has any lingering questions or is confused about anything, please feel free to ask, because many other advocates might be as well. And this is the opportunity to resolve those questions. So I will hand it over to my colleague Nina to get us started with the content for today's meeting.
Thanks so much, Zoe. Hey, everyone. It's really great to have you all join us. Zoe, I'm going to remove the spotlight so that, there we go. Hey, everyone. So great to see so many of our advocates here. And I want to just right off the bat talk about how we recognize that social media is not an easy tool to use for everybody. And really, I'm here to talk a little bit to get some buy-in from you all on why it is important for us to be able to take that step and do the learning to be able to use social media for advocacy. And one of the biggest reasons is because legislators do pay attention to it. So I'll have you go to the next slide for me. Legislators and their staff, as much as I hate to say that this is the case, because I personally am not like a huge fan of social media, but like in my personal life, right? But legislators and their staff care about social media and they pay attention to it. And the reason that they pay attention to it is because it's a public facing and highly visible forum for anybody to express their opinions. So it is accessible to all. It is, again, public facing and highly visible. And it's very easy for folks to use algorithms and to use little tips and tricks that we're going to show you later to make their post even more visible. So legislators see it and their staff sees it and it has an impact. And we as advocates and you all as advocates care about social media because your legislators care about it. We wouldn't be asking you to post on social media if we didn't think that it had an impact. Also, a second part of that, beyond just being able to sway legislators and their staff, another part of this is that we're able to bring public awareness to our issues and to our advocacy efforts through social media. So being able to use this public facing and highly visible and very accessible platform to get the word out about a bill we're talking about or an initiative that we've got going. All of that is an opportunity for us to spread more awareness around the issues that we all care about on this Zoom call and all of our advocates who are not here, but who do advocacy with us, and bring more folks into the fold with us. And I think we'll talk about it a little bit later on, but we can also talk about it in further conversations. Like there are opportunities for us to do Twitter storms and things like that to really bring that public awareness. But what I'm here to talk about a little bit more is kind of the internal workings of legislative offices to give you a better understanding of why and how legislators care about social media. So one of the things that is a helpful tool from the perspective of a legislative office is that social media, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, now all the legislators are on TikTok now too, which I'm not super familiar with, but I will learn. They like to use it as an opportunity to clarify their platform. Again, it's extremely frustrating to see, I'm sure, but it is the world that we live in. If you are watching CNN or MSNBC, oftentimes they will point to tweets that a legislative official or somebody in the administration has tweeted as an official statement. That is oftentimes how an elected official will make an official statement. You don't see as often that folks are doing traditional press releases in legislative offices for things that they're able to actually craft into a really quick tweet or a Facebook post and share out. So it's that opportunity to clarify their platform without needing to use the press to do it. Another part of this idea of why we care about social media and why legislators care about social media is looking at that office structure. So how much do they care? Legislative offices all work independently and all work a little bit differently. So I'm going to share with you some of the ways that I have seen in my experience working in congressional offices and in local elected official offices for how social media has been a part of the conversation. And I would say a lot of the ways that I'm going to talk about are common practice. So in a legislative office, you have various folks with various different roles. Within that structure, you'll always have somebody who's responsible for communications and press. Oftentimes, that individual is a big part of their work is that they are tasked with with managing the members' social media accounts, and that includes Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and also monitoring what people are talking about on social media and mentioning their boss's name in it. So again, we'll talk a little bit about like logistics and mentions and tags and hashtags and all of that stuff. But anytime that somebody tweets something and mentions a legislator's name, that gets populated into an algorithmic tracking trending way that the office can actually search. It's the same with Facebook and a little bit less so with Instagram, but mostly with Facebook and Twitter, that's the way it goes. So there is somebody in the legislative office whose purpose is to keep track of that. And they're going to keep track of chatter on various trending topics, whether it has their legislator's name or not as well. So if at DC Forum, we get thousands of people across the country to be tweeting hashtag end alls, that is going to start a trending topic. The legislators' staff is going to see it and they're going to bring it up to their member. So what does it look like when they bring social media up to the elected officials? Every office is a little bit different, so always remember that. But I will say that for the most part, it comes in the form of either an email out to the whole staff saying, hey, these are the things that are trending right now, or we had 100 people mention Representative Joe Smith's name in relation to this bill today. Or they'll actually have sit-down meetings with the chief of staff, with the legislative director, and with the elected official to say, hey, here are the topics that are trending right now. Here's what people are talking about in relation to your name. So the more that we can get the conversation of Alzheimer's and dementia research and caregiver support and everything else that we're talking about as in our priorities to be connected with our legislators' names, the more that we will continue to be a topic of conversation in those legislative offices. We're doing our job if they're talking about how, oh, Alzheimer's advocates tweeted at us again. You know, we had 20 Alzheimer's advocates tweet at us today. That you think that's actually a small number, but it's actually a relatively big number. So that's looking at it from the legislator side, right? And I'll have you go to the next slide, and we'll talk a little bit about how it can matter for advocates as well. So like we mentioned, it's a public facing and highly visible and highly accessible way to get in touch with our legislators. And I want to be very clear about this one thing. You don't have to have 1 million followers on any of these platforms to have that visibility. That's the beautiful thing about social media. For all of its downfalls, there's a lot of beauty, and being able to use social media for advocacy is one of those beautiful things. And you don't have to be an influencer. You don't have to have a bunch of followers to be able to get that visibility. And it really does amplify our impact. So we put here an example of a tweet. Our colleagues up in Northern California tweeted a thank you to Representative Doug LaMalfa. And I'll say that the Twitter account for our Northern California, my amazing Northern California colleagues, it's not an influencer account. It doesn't have hundreds of thousands of followers, right? It's a modest account, and it got retweeted by the member himself. And what that does is it increases the visibility, it amplifies that impact, because it then goes on to that member's page, and that member probably has several thousand, or in the case of some of our colleagues across the country who, you know, I'm thinking like the AOCs of the world who has like millions of followers, right? If that gets retweeted, that amplifies the message so much more. And it's also a public show of support from the elected official. So the reason why we as advocates care about it is it allows us to amplify that impact. And it's an accessible way for us to get their attention and make that noise. Next slide, please. Okay, now I get to pass it off to my colleagues who are going to talk a little bit more about the various social media platforms. which ones are best for advocacy and why and how to use them?
Thank you so much for that perspective, Nina. I think it's really valuable to have that sort of insider's view on how legislators interact with social media, how their staff talks about it in their office, just to confirm really that, our efforts on social media matter and they are visible to our legislators. So thank you. I appreciate your perspectives there. As you might have noticed, we've already been talking quite a bit about Twitter and less so about Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And that is because in our opinions, Twitter is one of the stronger social media platforms. In fact, I would say it's the most effective social media platform. Legislators are really active on it. It's very easy to tag them, as Nina mentioned, and as we'll go into a little bit more detail on in a few slides. So there's that visibility, there's that ease of use, and it's, those same messages that you can post on Twitter, you can also post on Facebook. Facebook has a little bit more of a restriction in terms of reach. So it's, if your Facebook is private, which a lot are, then your message doesn't go as far as it would on Twitter. And that said, it's important to have your tweets publicly visible on Twitter. So if you're comfortable, do try to have your Twitter be publicly viewable, no restrictions on your tweets. That way legislators can see it, our audience and community can see it, and we can really leverage that platform and the way that it helps us amplify our message. And so, we know that pictures are worth 1,000 words, and they're a really important component of social media advocacy. But for the same reasons that Facebook is less of an effective platform, the same is true of Instagram. A lot of people are private there. Legislators don't use Instagram nearly as much as they use Twitter. And so as far as pictures are effective, we just encourage you to include them in your social media posts on Twitter and on Facebook if you choose to post on Facebook. And let me go to the next slide. So now we'll get into more of the practical portion of our conversation of how to use social media and really specifically Twitter for advocacy. So here is a slide that just shows some of the components of Twitter, some of the functions available to you on the website. I know that this might look really familiar for some, but others are new to it, and these are important things to have a lot of familiarity with when we're talking about engaging with advocacy on Twitter. So on Twitter, you probably know that you have only a certain number of characters to use to get out your message. You have 280 characters. You can also attach photos, and that doesn't take away from your character count. So that's a really great way of making your tweets a little bit more, visually appealing, interesting, without removing any of those impactful words and messages that you're sharing. We'll walk through posting a tweet and how to use all these buttons towards the end of our conversation. But just to get us started, if you're going to tweet, you can click that blue feather icon. A box will appear where you can type your message. And a lot of times my colleagues and I will already have sampled tweets that you can just copy and paste into Twitter. But it's also really wonderful, and we love when we see advocates personalize their messages on Twitter as well. And when you're personalizing your message, we just recommend that you continue to tag your legislators. So you'll use that @ symbol and then their Twitter handle. And that basically makes the tweet go directly to them. It shows up in their notifications. So you'll tag your legislators and you'll use hashtags that are commonly used by our Alzheimer's Association advocacy community in order to, emphasize our points and collate all those messages together. And then of course there's the retweet button. We really encourage advocates to retweet any tweet from advocates they see about our priorities. Again, this just helps spread our message further. It helps emphasize to legislators that we're working in concert with a whole community who cares about these issues. And it just shows that there's strength and depth to our message. So if you retweet your fellow advocates or retweet a legislator who is talking about our issues, that just amplifies the conversation even further.
Zoe, we have a question in the chat from Bryna. How do you tag someone?
Okay, that is a great question. And I think that we can definitely answer that during our live tweet demonstration. We'll show you in real time how to tag someone. But just as a quick answer, if you'll notice on the screen right now, in the text of the tweet on the slide, it says @Santorciero. And that is how you tag someone. You type the @ symbol, and then you type their specific Twitter handle. And then that automatically tags them. So I hope that answers your question a little bit for now, but if not, there will be additional time at the end to go over that again, and also to answer questions in greater detail if you need. So this slide just shows sort of the anatomy of a really good tweet. And this is a format that we encourage you to use in your own Twitter drafting. You can see that there's the legislator's handle. So that means they're tagged. That means this tweet is showing up in their notifications. We used our commonly used hashtag #EndAlzheimer's or #EndAlz. And if you'll notice, that's in blue. So when you click that, that's a hyperlink, and you can click it, and then you'll see all of the tweets underneath it that also use #EndAlzheimer's. And that's just an important way to, like I said, identify your message with the whole community's messages. This tweet wonderfully includes a photo of their meeting with the legislator. Again, we really recommend that, to attach photos as often as possible, just because it makes your tweet stand out. It really, it just makes it more fun to look at, and that's always a good thing. And then this tweet also includes a really clear thank you and ask. So when you're tweeting, you want always to have a message, a purpose for why you're tweeting. And this one is to thank the senator for their support during the public health crisis. So to get started, and you'll notice these same points in the follow along document, it's recommended that you follow all your legislators, and the follow along document has a little link that you can click where you can automatically find, just by entering your address, the social media handles for your legislators. So we recommend that you follow them. We recommend that you follow our statewide and National Alzheimer's Association Twitter accounts. That way you can stay in touch with what we're doing, what we're tweeting. Of course, you'll probably already know all those things because we send a lot of emails. But that way you'll see it on Twitter too, and you can interact with those tweets on Twitter, again, to raise the profile of our advocacy efforts. We also recommend, when you're getting started with Twitter, to personalize your profile. This just helps legislators see that you're a real person, a real constituent. So personalizing your profile means including a photo of yourself on your profile. The default is a photo of a little very simple gray silhouette, and that just sort of looks maybe like a bot, or it's harder to tell if that person's a real person, as opposed to if you have a photo of yourself in your profile. And we also encourage you to list the city that you're living in your profile. That way legislators can see, oh, this is my constituent. I really, really need to pay attention to what they're saying, even more so than they already would just by tagging them. We also recommend, like I mentioned, liking and retweeting relevant tweets from our community. And of course, posting your own advocacy tweets, either using our sample messages or by creating your own using the tips that are in the follow along document. We also recommend strongly using these hashtags. Y'all will already be familiar with our hashtag #EndAlz. That is on pretty much all the tweets we put out there. It's evergreen. That one's, that's always our message, is that we want to end Alzheimer's. And so all of our messages relate to that. Hashtag #CareForAlz is also an evergreen hashtag that you can use in pretty much any of your tweets. And then this last one, hashtag Bold Alzheimer's Act, is an example of a hashtag that's tied to a specific piece of legislation. And usually when we're talking about legislation on social media, we will have a hashtag for it. And so when you're drafting your tweet, you can just find the hashtag for that piece of legislation. And that just, again, makes the messaging a lot more pointed and also helps to amplify it. I think this is a section that's going to be covered by my colleague Terry. So I'll let her come off mute.
So I may be dating myself, aging myself, but back in the day, fax machines and receiving faxes in legislator offices was a huge deal. There was someone who specifically gathered all that information. So that's how I think of Twitter, is a modern day fax. And really, what Zoe said is true. You want to identify yourself as a constituent, as a voter, and you want to, personalize. You want to say that you're a caregiver, or what your personal connection to Alzheimer's is. So retweeting and following people who use hashtag and alts and retweeting them and supporting them and engaging them really has an exponential effect. And then, I have a monitoring dashboard, and I follow, many hashtags and many legislators. And so if you forget to tag your legislator, but you use hashtag and alt, I will see that. And other people who are following will see that as well. And so then they can amplify the message that way. So tagging is using the @ and hashtags, can be trending. And even if it's not trending, even if you think no one's reading it, the message is getting out there, and more than likely the legislator will see it as well, or the legislator staff or aide, and will bring it to the attention of the elected official. And so retweeting means RT means you automatically put that in your feed. But if you quote tweet, it's saying, I agree with you, I support you. Many of my, neighbors or loved ones support you, and we're behind you all the way. And so quote tweet in my eyes has a more of an impact and more powerful statement rather than just retweeting. So we really encourage you to, be active users, especially when you're at Advocacy Day or Advocacy Forum. I know that you probably may feel like, well, I don't do this normally, and I'm afraid to put something out. But really, you are expressing your opinion, which is completely valid, and you're supporting the Alzheimer's Association. So it's really a win-win.
Thank you so much, Terry. Really appreciate it. Let me see if I can get this slide to switch. There we go. So we're now going to talk a little bit about when to tweet. And I do just want to say that there's really never a bad time to tweet. The more legislators are hearing from us, the better. But there are some times when it's particularly strategic to make your voice heard on social media. And those times are, of course, during our ongoing advocacy campaigns in support of legislation, or even just awareness raising. And as you all know, we love to see tweets after legislative meetings. We think that just shows that our community is out here working in support of people living with Alzheimer's, and it shows, legislators that we have a reach beyond just our in-person meetings. We also encourage you to post tweets during relevant observances like Alzheimer's Brain and Awareness Month or Caregivers Month. And then when legislators post about our issues, that's a really wonderful time to retweet or quote tweet to thank them for their efforts. If there's any time that a legislator is starting a topic or introducing the topic of one of our issues, we want to show out in force and support them in doing so. So tweeting at that time, and especially quote tweeting them, which we'll cover in our demonstration, would be a wonderful thing to do at that time. And that leads us to our live Twitter demonstration, which my colleague Veronica has kindly volunteered to walk us through. So I think she's going to start sharing her screen. And I'll just highlight that on the follow along document, there are already written sample tweets. And we encourage you to join Veronica as she is working on posting these tweets as a demonstration, and post them in your own social media for profiles. Those tweets are there for you all to use. And we also encourage you to write and post your own if you're feeling so led.
Okay, thank you, Zoe. I'm going to start sharing my screen with my, with my Twitter page. And I did get a couple of requests through direct message, so I'm going to incorporate those into our live demo. Can you all see my Twitter home screen here? Great. All right, so this is what my homepage looks like. You can see I follow a lot of Alzheimer's advocates, colleagues, accounts, so I get fed a lot of this information, which is great for things like retweeting and quote tweeting. But I'm going to start out by showing you how to craft a tweet from the beginning. And to do that, we're going to use the follow along document that Zoe has been mentioning so that we can just easily copy something and you can copy something and get it in here. And now let me make this a bit smaller so I can get to my other tab. All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to just start with one of these sample tweets here. And I am going to borrow this one that is focused on the advocacy forum here because I've got a photo queued up that will help us do that. So I copied that tweet. This box right here next to my photo is where we're going to be crafting that one. It pops up on your home screen, or you can always use the blue feather icon as Zoe mentioned earlier in the presentation. So if we click to open that, we see this standalone page here. And this allows us to choose our audience, which allows me to make sure that everyone who's following me can see this. We'll leave it there. And then down here, there are some additional icons. The photo icon is there. We'll use that in a moment. You can also include links to videos and things like that if you're trying to create more interaction with your posts. So the content that I copied from earlier, I'm just going to go ahead and paste that here. You'll see that we've got our evergreen hashtag here, #AndAlz, so that others can follow along in the conversation. And in this case, I'm not tagging a legislator because our campaign for treatment access is really targeted at an administrative office. So you'll see that I've tagged CMS here. But if you were tagging a legislator, you just go ahead and start with your @ symbol. And as an example, I'm just going to include Senator Padilla as I'm pretending to craft this tweet, and you'll see that, sorry that my internet is slow, but it will start populating names that match that handle so that you can go ahead and tag that there. So you'll see Senator Dianne Feinstein popped up there. That's someone that you could certainly click and include in a conversation relevant to our advocacy. So for the purposes of this tweet, we've got this here. We're talking about advocates heading to Washington, D.C. month for the forum. And I want to make sure to include a photo here too, just because that gets a lot more visibility from people on their home screen. So I'm going to click the photo media icon. And this will allow you to select from wherever you grab photos from your device. So in this case, I've saved a photo to my desktop. You just double click it, give your computer a moment. And then you'll see we've got this great photo here of a photo of me and our DEI leader and Congressman Jim Costa, who we met with last year as part of the AIM Advocacy Forum. So I thought that would be a nice little callback. If you wanted to tag him here, you do the same thing where you start including the @ and you'll get very familiar with people's names as you continue to do this work, especially your own member of Congress. You'll recognize their handle pretty quickly. So Here we go. We've got a little bit of a policy tie-in. We have our evergreen hashtag. We're tagging a member, we're tagging someone from the administration, and we've included a photo. So for the purposes of this one, we can go ahead and click tweet, but before you hit that, you'll see this little blue circle down here that shows how long your tweet is and how close you're getting to hitting the character cap. So we're good to go in this case, and I'm just going to tweet that out. So you'll see that then populate on your own home screen. People can start interacting with it. You'll see down here, folks might leave a comment, they might like it, they might use the retweet button. And I'm gonna show you next how to quote tweet, but I don't wanna do that from my own photo because that's something that I've posted originally. And I am going to visit my colleague Jessica's page because she's been doing quite a bit of district visits at the state legislative level with a lot of wonderful photos and other advocates. So here's Jessica's page. We're gonna scroll down to interact with something that she's posted. And here you can see that she has quote tweeted someone who's on this training, David. I'm gonna visit his tweet there. And down here, where you see the retweet button, I want to share David's wonderful tweet with my own followers. So if we hit the retweet button, it will give us two options. I can either retweet it, which requires no work on my part. It will share exactly what David shared with his photo and the content that he posted, or I can quote tweet it. And this allows me to put my own message on top of what David did. So I'm just gonna say, love to see this advocacy with, let's see here. We're gonna tag the assembly member and our wonderful, I'm gonna tag our chapter as well. So wonderful Northern California advocates. And include our end alls hashtag. And that's it. You can see we've got a member tagged, we tagged the chapter, we're including a hashtag, and then all of my followers will now see the content that David has posted. So I'm gonna revisit my homepage so you can see that that's up. And now anyone that engages with me can engage with David's post. So we've elevated that, we've elevated his message and the work of our advocates in that district. And then I wanted to do one is to just show why the hashtag is important. So if I were to click on hashtag end alls, you can see any other posts that have that same hashtag. So there are top posts, but I like to go to latest because it shows me what the most recent ones are if I wanted to get involved in a conversation. So you can see my post that we just did. Philip is on his way. He included his own photo, which I love. You can always grab graphics from other association pages as well and borrow them for your own. You see the one we posted with Representative Costa. And then you'll start to see other chatter happening from the association and other accounts nationally and worldwide. So it's a really nice way to engage with our work and to monitor what other people are doing in the same space that might inspire you too. And if I could just have one more minute, I wanted to indulge a question that I got through the chat about how to update your own profile picture and your own name and things like that. So you'll see down here, my photo pops up all the way at the bottom left sidebar. If I were to click on that, oh, sorry, wrong one. Let's go to the little profile image. So the image of the person will take me to my own page. And then you'll see this really handy edit profile button to the right of my own photo. If you click that, there's an option to upload your own photo, which again, you can grab from your device. You can change your name. You can put a short bio, and even including a hashtag in that is useful. Include your location and any other information that you want to share there. So I encourage everyone, if you don't have a profile picture, or include your, where you live, that's a really helpful thing for all of us to start doing so that we can engage with each other in a more meaningful way. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can all get to answering questions.
Okay, I have been I have been pulling out all the questions as you all have been asking them, but please continue to ask questions in the chat box. I want to say there are no dumb questions ever. If you have a question, even if it's something logistic or technical, I promise you it's likely that somebody else also has the question. So just put it in the chat, and either myself or one of my colleagues will pull it out and ask it. So I will start with, and here, do we, Zoe, did you want to remove all the spotlights? And then if folks have questions that they want to come off mute for, we can also, we can see them. So I will start with the first question. How do you avoid potential conflict between your organization and your personal views and the Alzheimer's Association? Zoe or Veronica, did you want to answer that, or I'm happy to take it too?
I actually was discussing this with an advocate earlier today, so I'm happy to just start that conversation to say, if there's ever anything that we are advocating for as an association that you personally don't feel aligned with, it's okay to step out of that conversation and not be a part of it. But, I think so much of what we do is meant to be bipartisan. And so I hope that many of you are recognizing that the work that we do is intended for that goal of ending Alzheimer's. And we do try to bring every member of Congress along with us to do that. So I would encourage you, if there is a particular campaign that you're maybe not as wild about, you could just pivot and focus on a different campaign. We typically have 4 or 5 different campaigns moving at any given moment. And I think a good evergreen one is that we are typically asking for more more federal research funding. And that's a really easy one for all of us to get behind if you wanted to dip your toe in the advocacy on Twitter space.
That's great. Thank you, Veronica. Oh, Jessica, I see you came off mute. Nope. Okay. So next question. What are the negatives that we might incur when tweeting?
I can hop in to share some perspectives. I've used social media as a part of my advocacy career for many years, and I have run into a couple of weird situations with social media. They are very rare, but I would say one negative is because it's a very public forum, that means really anyone can see your tweets. And I once had, when I was working at a different advocacy organization, once had sort of an opposing side of an issue pick up on my tweets, and then they were retweeting them and just kind of adding me and mentioning me a lot. So my Twitter got very inundated with messages from an opposing viewpoint at the time. That eventually died down. It took like 2 days for that activity to slow down. And I think, at that point I was working on a much more partisan issue. So that's really why that spirited discourse was happening on my page. I think we're pretty insulated from that sort of exposure when we're tweeting about Alzheimer's issues, because it is a bipartisan issue. I think most people are very much on our side, or on the side of increasing research funding and treatment and care options for people living with Alzheimer's. So that's one negative I've run into. But I would say, again, that's very rare. That was one occurrence out of the past 6 years of my professional life.
That is really helpful. The next question, this person asks, they don't really like Twitter, but they do love posting on Instagram, and through Instagram, you can share on Twitter and Facebook. Is this something that you feel would be effective?
I think
Either of you jump
definitely.
in.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know who's going to answer that one, but absolutely. We focused on Twitter here in this training because we feel that it's one of the more effective social media platforms, but that doesn't in any way mean that your social media advocacy on other platforms is a wash. So if you're feeling led to post and to cultivate that sort of posting profile on your other social media platforms, please do that. That would be wonderful. And even if you're private on Facebook or on Instagram, that still means that your community, your loved ones are seeing an issue that you're passionate about. So that's still advocacy. You're still reaching people with that. If you're private on those platforms, your legislators might not be able to see it. But like I said, your community will, and that's still important advocacy.
I just wanted to reiterate that last point, Zoe, because I've had a lot of newer advocates who've been more into posting on Instagram, and we've run into that same problem where it's more insulated, but it's been a great recruitment tool just to make other family members and community members aware that we do this kind of work and to really showcase the types of issues we get involved in, and that piques people's interest sometimes too.
Yeah, and as a reminder, folks, from the advocate perspective, Twitter or social media in general has two purposes: to get the attention of the legislator and also to get the attention of the public. So definitely want to echo what my colleagues mentioned. For this next couple of questions, Veronica, can I have you share your screen again? Because a couple of them are technical questions. And while you're doing that, I'm going to answer another question, a great question in the chat. What does evergreen mean? So evergreen is a term that we use to talk about something that can be used all year round, something that is not tied to a specific project or initiative or campaign, something that isn't time sensitive. So when we say it's an evergreen resource, we mean it's something that can be used and used again. So for us, the hashtag that we use, hashtag #endalls, is something that we've been using for years and we will continue to use. No matter which department we're talking about within the association, all of the departments use hashtag #endalls. So that's kind of the term, what the term evergreen means, is that it is able to be used without being restricted by time sensitivity or specific campaigns or anything like that. Great question. Okay, so these next couple of questions are technical. And one person asked, I don't understand the dot in front of or to start a tweet. So I will let Veronica demonstrate what that looks like. And while she's doing that, I'll talk about the reasoning for doing it. So it's a little bit silly. You may see people tweet with a period at the beginning, and then they tag a legislator. So they do dot at Senator Feinstein. Please support our effort to hashtag #endalls, right? The dot at the beginning is actually a trick to beat the Twitter algorithm. The at Senator Feinstein, the reason we use at Senator Feinstein is to actually notify the legislator that they are being tagged in something. So it actually pops up as a notification for the legislator. The only way that the Twitter algorithm allows you to do that is if there is text before the at sign. So the period at the beginning is a way to trick the algorithm. If Veronica were to have just put at Senator Feinstein without the period, then that tweet would be tweeted out and it would be counted. If you were to say search Senator Feinstein, it would show up, but it would not notify the senator's staff person who manages her Twitter account that a tweet has actually happened. So that's a great question, really gets into the nitty-gritty of the algorithm. Next one is, how do you upload a photo?
Good question. So I'm gonna pull up the tweet window just so it's a little easier to see. So you can see here that, again, this is my page. This is my box to write any text. But if I wanted to include a photo here, you want to click this media button. So that's the first icon on the very bottom of the tweet window that you'll see. Once you click that, it opens your device up. It allows you to access things in your device. So you can access files and photos and all of those things. So here you can see on my desktop, I saved this photo that I entitled Costa because it was with Representative Costa. All I had to do at that point was select the image and then it loaded into my tweet. Similarly, you can go into, I don't know what these photos are. Oh, here we go. It's a picture of my kid. So you'll get to see some fun stuff there. If I were to double click that image, you can see that it loaded it into the tweet, and then I can add some text or any of the other interactive hashtags and things like that ahead of it. So I'm doing this from my computer. If you were to do it from your phone, it's very similar, where you'd click the media icon. It would allow you to access your photos. So anything that you have saved there would be accessible to you on Twitter at that point. You may run into some issues about granting access, but that's typically just a settings thing on your phone that it will prompt you to do. So it should just be 1 or 2 steps. And again, if you're ever trying to craft a tweet and you're just running into a roadblock, please reach out to one of us as your policy leads, and we're happy to do, a quick screen share or FaceTime or anything like that to get you past that hurdle so that you can really feel like you're effectively using the platform.
Thank you so much, Veronica. Another question came about editing the profile. So if you would go into that little space. So we had somebody say that on their Twitter screen, it says something like switch to professional in their profile. So maybe you can kind of show. So here we go. Twitter.
I've never used this before. Yeah.
So I'm happy you're showing it. So I'll use it. So or I'll talk about it. So Twitter is trying out a new thing where they're kind of like trying to make themselves a LinkedIn a LinkedIn type platform. And so Twitter for Professionals is their way of doing that. It's an opportunity, like it says here, to like better connect with your audience, increase your profits and your brands. So it's a lot of times it's used for businesses to be able to like promote products and things like that, and then also do recruitment of potential candidates for open jobs and things like that. So you don't have to worry about that. We did want to like show it to you since it was a question that somebody asked, but you don't have to worry about it. When we're using Twitter for advocacy, we're not going to be using that professional part.
You can just stick to updating your name and your city. And
yes.
things like that.
And your photo. Veronica has a great one, both for her personal profile photo and the banner photo. So if you need any nice like end alls branded photos to use for your banner, let us know, or let your public policy staff person know.
And again, you'll just see those icons there. The little camera icon allows me to access the photos on my device, so I can change that around. And this is the banner photo that Nina's talking about, which is the big header across your personal profile page. You can also change that by clicking the camera icon.
Thank you so much. We have another question too. Veronica, if you could go to a new tweet. And David has a question. What are the other icons at the bottom of the tweet?
Great question. So I'll walk you through some of these so that you can familiarize yourself with them. But here is, I kind of went through that quickly. I got the second icon, which are GIFs. And those are just sort of the the moving pictures that you'll see that aren't quite videos, but you might see some images here. Let's see. I don't know if that's a question. I think that was a mistake. So if you were to click on these are all categories. It's, again, if you have photos or videos with your post, you're more likely to draw attention to the post. So it's a way to really, if you don't have a photo on hand, but you have something that maybe you want to say like celebrate, we can search for those. It'll give you a lot of different options of things that are celebratory. If we're like, if we got a bill passed through Congress and we want to include that here, we can just click on one. It will add it to your tweet. And then again, you want to add your hashtags and your text up top. But this just helps to increase engagement with your post. So that's the GIF icon. This one I haven't used, but it looks like you can poll people and add your questions in there. So that one takes a bit more work. Let's see, whoops, sorry about that. Pull this back up. Emojis, I hope you're all familiar with emojis from texting and from your phones, but if you click the emoji icon, you can access many of the same emojis that you do when you are text messaging. And then again, your recent ones will be up on top. There's a purple heart, which I really like. There is a brain icon, which I really like for our work. If you're announcing something or celebrating something, all those familiar emojis are there for you. And then if you wanted to be really sneaky and you had, 10 minutes tonight, but you don't want your tweet to be posted until tomorrow because you're just getting ahead of the game, you can actually schedule your tweet to go out at a later time. So I'm sure that there's a limit on how far out you can post this, but if you click that schedule icon, you can select the date, month, and down to the minute that you'd be able to have that post go out without you doing a thing on the actual day and time. So that's a really useful tool if you have a minute today and want to tweet something out for tomorrow or whatever that is. And then this last little icon here, which is grayed out for me, is a way for you to put your location. So you can sort of geotag what it is that you're posting. Again, another way for folks to just kind of interact with your post if they're in the same geographic area. But those are the icons.
Thanks so much, Veronica. And one trick that a lot of folks use who are really active on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram is to schedule the tweets out. So if you know that in 1 week you have 3 or 4 tweets that you want to send around, but you think you might not have time, or you think you might forget to send it at a specific time, you can always spend 10 minutes scheduling a couple of tweets out. And that's a really great trick to make using social media for advocacy an easy and non-burdensome part of the work that we do. I think we've gotten all caught up on questions. Unless I'm missing any, please feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand, and you can also come off of mute.
I saw somebody ask earlier in the chat if there was going to be an email with all of these resources that we've been spamming y'all with in the chat, and certainly we will be sure to circulate the follow along document link and all the other links that we've been sharing. I know it's been a lot, but I hope that follow along document will be really clear and useful for folks, and it also includes links to lists of social media handles for fellow advocates. And that way we can all start following each other and retweeting and liking each other's tweets. I am aware, is there any more questions? Okay, David would like some personalized assistance with his tweet, although I gotta say that was a really great tweet that you posted today, David. I'm not seeing any more questions, and I'm aware we have 1 minute. We probably have a little bit of time if there's just a brief question for anybody, but if not, we can wrap up this social media training. And as always, please be sure to reach out to us with any questions that you have. We are here and available to help with Twitter and social media advocacy and advocacy in general. And we love working with you all and being there to answer your questions. So just please be in touch. And thank you again so much for spending your time with us this evening and learning a little bit more about social media advocacy with us. Like I said, there's a lot of really exciting advocacy opportunities for all of us coming up. I know we're all going to be busy and working together a lot, and I look forward to interacting with you all in real life and on social media.